and walked through the metal corridors of Sentinel 7, his 4 legs clicking against the floor. His chitinous armor gleamed under the bright lights. Other cadets moved aside as he passed. Some stared, others whispered. He ignored them all. His people were faster, stronger, smarter than most species in the galaxy. The Academy had begged his planet to send students. Now he was here, and he would show everyone what true excellence looked like. The door to Squad Room 7 slid open. 5 humans stood inside, wearing standard gray training uniforms. They turned to look at him, and his compound eyes took in everything at once. Soft skin, slow movements, weak bodies. These were the humans everyone talked about. These were the Coalition's elite shock troops. "Impossible." "You must be in," said a human male with dark hair and calm eyes. "I'm squad leader. Welcome to the team." And clicked his mandibles together, the equivalent of a polite nod. "I am here for cultural integration training. I will complete my duties efficiently." A shorter, muscular human laughed. "Efficient, huh? I like this guy already. I'm Wu. I blow things up and carry the big guns." "One," said a female human with sharp eyes. She was small and quiet. "Communications and tech." "Miran," another female said. She had kind eyes and steady hands. "Medic, try not to need me too much." "Wu Jin," the last one grinned. "Things that need to go boom, I make them go boom better." And studied them. They seemed relaxed, too relaxed. Where was their discipline, their focus? On Prime, cadets stood at attention, ready for combat at any moment. These humans acted like they were at a social gathering. "Training begins in 20 minutes, said. "Zero-gravity combat simulation. Have you done zero-G work before?" "Of course," and replied. His species evolved in low-gravity caves. Moving without ground beneath him was natural. "I achieved perfect scores in all zero-gravity tests." "Great," said. He did not sound impressed. "Suit up. We'll see you in the simulation deck." 20 minutes later, and floated in the massive simulation chamber. The room was dark except for glowing targets and obstacles. His team floated nearby, checking their weapons and equipment. Everything was just like real combat, except the bullets were simulated energy pulses. Getting hit would hurt but not kill. The simulation began, and moved like lightning. His reflexes were 3 times faster than humans. He saw targets before his teammates could react. His weapon fired with perfect accuracy. 1 target, 2, 5, 10. He twisted through the air, using his 4 legs to push off walls and obstacles. The humans looked like they were moving through water compared to him. But something strange happened. The humans were not trying to compete with him. They moved as a group, called out positions. One tracked enemies on sensors and fed information to everyone. Wu covered areas where others could not see. Miran watched everyone's backs. Wu Jin cleared obstacles with small charges and got 43 kills. The human team got 38 total, but they completed the mission objective, securing the enemy command point, and had been so focused on targets he forgot about the objective. He had failed. "Good run," said after the simulation ended. They stood in the ready room, removing their gear. "You've got incredible reflexes and best I've ever seen." "I failed the mission," and said. The words felt like acid in his mouth. "First time's always rough," Wu said, slapping him on what would be his shoulder if he had shoulders. "Don't worry, bug boy, you'll get the hang of teamwork." An's antennae twitched with irritation. Bug boy. The disrespect was unbelievable, but he said nothing. He would prove himself. He would show them that individual excellence was superior to their clumsy group tactics. The next few days were frustrating. Every training exercise showed the same pattern, and performed better than any individual human, but the humans working together somehow achieved more. It made no sense. Mathematics said individual excellence should win, but the results said otherwise. He began to watch them during off hours. They behaved strangely. In the mess hall, They shared food. Wu would give half his dessert to Wu Jin without being asked. One helped Miran study even though they were not in the same classes, listened to everyone's problems and offered quiet advice. They wasted time on social bonding. They told jokes. They laughed at things that were not funny. They touched each other constantly, pats on the back, friendly shoves, casual contact. Never touched unless mating or fighting. One evening and found them in the common room. They sat in a circle on the floor. One was reading from an old book, paper pages and everything. The others listened like children hearing a story. "What is the purpose of this activity?" and asked. "It's poetry," one said. "Human literature from ancient Korea. It helps us remember where we came from." Why? And genuinely did not understand. That information has no tactical value. "Not everything is about tactics," said. He was sharpening a knife with a small stone. The knife was already sharp. Why did he sharpen it? "It's about staying connected to our culture, our history, the people who came before us." Inefficient, and said. "Maybe," Miran smiled, "but it makes us happy, and happiness makes us better soldiers." And did not understand. Emotions were weaknesses. They clouded judgment. They made you slow. His instructors on Prime had taught him to suppress all feelings during combat. Only pure logic and instinct mattered. Yet these humans embraced emotions. They let feelings guide them. And somehow they were considered the best soldiers in the coalition. It made no sense. On the seventh day, their instructor entered the squad room. Dong was an older human with gray hair and a missing left arm, replaced by a mechanical prosthetic. Scars covered his face and neck. He looked like death itself had tried to claim him and failed. "Listen up," Dong's voice was rough like gravel. "Training phase is over. Your next assignment is a 3-week combat and survival exercise on Titan 9. Hostile environment, dangerous predators. You'll be carrying minimal supplies. This will test everything you've learned." The humans exchanged glances and saw something pass between them, some unspoken communication. They were worried but trying not to show it. "Titan 9 is a frozen hell," Dong continued. "Temperatures drop to -100 at night. Ion storms will fry your electronics. Native predators hunt in packs. 20% of cadets fail this exercise. 5% don't come back." And felt excitement surge through his body. Finally, a real challenge. He would show these humans what superiority truly meant. In a hostile environment, his natural advantages would shine. His cold blood physiology was perfect for extreme temperatures. His 6 eyes could see in multiple spectrums. His reaction time would keep him alive when humans fell. "Pack your gear," Dong said. "Transport leaves at dawn," dismissed. As they filed out, stopped beside him. "You've never been in real survival situations before, have you?" "I have trained extensively in simulations," and said. "Simulations are different from reality," said. His voice was not unkind. "On Titan 9 there's no reset button, no safe words. You make a mistake, you die. Your team makes a mistake, you all die." "Then I will ensure I make no mistakes." Looked at him for a long moment. "It's not about you alone, N. It's about all of us. We survive together or we don't survive at all." Inefficient philosophy, and said. "Maybe," smiled slightly. "But it's kept humans alive for thousands of years. Think about that." He walked away, leaving him alone in the corridor. The cadet stood there, processing the conversation. Around him, the station hummed with life. Humans hurried past, heading to their duties, their families, their lives. And returned to his quarters and began to pack. He selected the best equipment. He ran calculations for every scenario. He prepared for individual survival. Tomorrow, he would prove that methods were superior. Tomorrow, he would show these emotional, inefficient humans how a real warrior operated. Tomorrow, everything would change. But N did not know that yet. The transport ship shook as it entered Titan 9's atmosphere. and sat in the troop bay watching his human teammates. They were playing cards. Cards. They were heading into a dangerous survival mission, and they played children's games. "You in?" Wu asked, shuffling the worn deck. "I am preparing mentally for the mission," and replied. "That's what cards are for," Wu grinned. "Keeps your mind sharp, keeps you relaxed." "Illogical. Relaxation decreases combat readiness." "Nah," Wu Jin said, looking at his cards. "Being too tense makes you slow. You gotta find the balance." And did not understand. On Prime, soldiers meditated in silence before missions. They emptied their minds of all distractions. These humans filled their minds with nonsense and called it preparation. He opened his personal data pad and began writing his report to the council. They wanted to know about human military effectiveness. So far, he had found little to impress him. Subject: Human Military Assessment, Day 7. Humans display excessive social bonding behavior. They waste energy on frivolous activities. Their emotional responses interfere with logical decision-making. They rely on teamwork to compensate for individual weakness. Conclusion: humans are adequate soldiers only in groups. Individually, they are inferior to most coalition species. He closed the data pad, satisfied with his observations. Across from him, one read a small book, real paper, ancient and worn, and curiosity finally won. "What is that?" he asked. "Poetry," she said without looking up. "Human poetry from Earth. My grandmother gave it to me before I joined the academy." "Why do you read obsolete texts? They contain no tactical information." One looked up at him. Her eyes were dark and thoughtful. "They contain something more important. They remind me why I fight, why any of this matters. Fighting matters because it is our duty." "No," she said softly. "Fighting matters because of what we protect, the people we love, the memories we carry. This book is 300 years old. My grandmother's grandmother owned it. When I read these words, I'm connected to all of them, all the people who came before me, all the people who survived so I could be here." And tried to process this. Did not venerate ancestors. The dead were gone. Only the living mattered. But humans seemed to carry their dead with them everywhere like invisible weights. "Inefficient," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. The transport landed hard. Ice and rock crunched under the hull. The ramp dropped and cold air rushed in, and felt his body temperature plummet immediately. His species was cold-blooded. He needed external heat to function properly. "Damn, it's freezing," Miran muttered, activating her suit's heating systems. And tried to do the same. His fingers moved slowly. The cold was affecting his motor control faster than expected. This was a problem. Appeared beside him. "Here," he handed in a small thermal pack. "Put this against your thorax, it'll help." "I do not require assistance," and said, but he took the pack. The warmth helped immediately. "Everybody needs help sometimes," said. He did not make it sound like weakness. They marched across the frozen landscape. The ground was dark ice, reflecting the distant sun. Mountains of frozen methane rose in the distance. The air was thin but breathable, barely. Every breath hurt. And Six Eyes scanned constantly for threats. His training focused on observation and analysis. In his mind, he tracked every squad member's position, their physical condition, potential danger zones. It was what he was good at. "Contact," one's voice came through the comm. "Movement 300 meters northwest quadrant." They dropped into defensive positions. And saw them, crystalline creatures, each the size of a human, moving across the ice on 4 legs. Predators, 6 of them. "Hold fire until they close to 100 meters, ordered. "Conserve ammunition." The creatures charged. They moved fast, skating across the ice like it was nothing. At 100 meters gave the order. "Fire." An's weapon sang. 3 precise shots, 3 dead creatures. His accuracy was perfect, his timing flawless. He was built for this. Wu's heavy plasma cannon roared. But something went wrong. The weapon sputtered and died. The cold had frozen some internal component. "Weapons down," Wu shouted. A creature leaped at him. Wu swung the useless cannon like a club, smashing the creature aside. Miran covered him with her sidearm. One was already working on a portable terminal, trying to reroute power through backup systems. "Give me 30 seconds, one said. "We don't have 30 seconds, Wu Jin shouted, firing at another creature. And watched this chaos. Human technology had failed. Now they improvised. Wu used his weapon as a melee tool. Miran provided covering fire despite being the medic. Wu Jin positioned himself to create a crossfire, coordinated everything while still shooting. The cannon came back online. Wu fired, and the last creature exploded into crystal fragments. "Everyone okay?" asked. "Define okay," Wu laughed, checking his bruised shoulder. "I just clubbed a crystal monster to death with a plasma cannon. I've had better days." They laughed. They had nearly died, and they laughed about it. And updated his report in his mind. Humans are adaptive when equipment fails. They improvise solutions. However, their technology is unreliable in extreme conditions. Equipment would not fail. They established base camp in a shallow ice cave. The humans worked together without speaking much. Each person knew their role. One set up communications. Miran organized medical supplies. Wu and Wu Jin secured the perimeter, planned the next day's route, and performed his duties alone. He was faster working alone, more efficient. He did not need to coordinate or communicate. He simply did what needed doing. When night fell, the temperature dropped further. They gathered around a small heat generator, the only luxury they allowed themselves, and sat slightly apart, conserving his energy. "My grandmother lived through the Seoul reconstruction," Miran said suddenly. No one had asked, but she spoke anyway. "After the Third War, the city was rubble. Everyone said it was impossible to rebuild, but she didn't give up. None of them did. They rebuilt everything brick by brick. She used to tell me, 'We survive because we refuse to quit. We survive because we carry each other.'" "That's a good memory," one said softly. "Why do you share trauma narratives?" and asked. "It serves no tactical purpose. It only reminds you of pain." Miran looked at him. "Because pain is part of being alive. Sharing it makes it lighter. And remembering what people survived gives us strength. My grandmother survived hell. If she could do that, I can survive this frozen rock." "Emotion makes you vulnerable," and said. "Maybe," said, he was sharpening that knife again. "But it also makes us strong. You fight with your brain and you calculate every move. It makes you good, but we fight with our hearts too. We fight for each other, for home, for everyone who came before us. That's something you can't calculate." "You fight like you are alone," continued. "I've watched you. Every exercise, every drill, you perform your role perfectly. But you never look to see if others need help. You never call for support. You do everything yourself." "Because I am capable," and said. "Being capable alone is different from being part of something bigger," said. "You're skilled, maybe the most skilled cadet I've seen, but skill isn't enough. Not out here. Your species compensates for weakness with numbers," and said. "Maybe," smiled slightly, "or maybe we understand something you don't yet." Before N could respond, Instructor Dong's voice crackled over the comm system. Static made it hard to hear, but the words came through clearly enough. "Attention all squads. This exercise just became real. Coalition intelligence has detected raiders establishing a forward base 200 kilometers north of your position. All cadets are hereby activated for combat operations. This is no longer training. Repeat, this is not a drill." Silence fell over the cave. The Wujin whispered, "Here," and knew about everyone did. They were a warrior race, reptilian and brutal. They took no prisoners. They gave no mercy. If they were establishing a base on Titan 9, it meant war was coming to this sector. "New orders are incoming," Dong continued. All squads are to march to Rally Point Omega. You have 3 days. Reinforcements are expected in 72 hours. We need to hit them before those reinforcements arrive. The comm went silent. Wu looked at, this is really happening. Yeah, said he, stood up, his face hard. Gear check, we march in 1 hour, everyone sleeps in shifts, stay sharp. And felt excitement coursing through his veins. Finally, real combat. Finally, a chance to prove superiority against actual enemies. But when he looked at his human teammates, he saw something that made him pause. Their faces had changed. The jokes were gone. The easy laughter vanished. They looked older somehow, harder. Their eyes held something he had not seen before. They looked dangerous. You okay, Bug Boy? Wu asked, checking his weapon. I am prepared for combat, In said. Good, Wu said. His voice was different now, colder. Because they don't play games, they don't take prisoners, it's kill or be killed. I understand combat, In said. Yeah, Wu said, loading ammunition. But understanding and experiencing are different things. Stay close to us tomorrow. War isn't like training. And wanted to argue, wanted to say he needed no protection, but something in Wu's eyes stopped him. These humans had changed in an instant. The friendly, joking soldiers were gone. What remained looked like something else entirely, something primal and fierce. For the first time since arriving at the academy, and felt uncertain. Tomorrow they would march toward real enemies. Tomorrow the bullets would start flying. And then suddenly realized he might not be as prepared as he thought. Day 1 of the march was brutal. The terrain fought them at every step. Ice storms reduced visibility to almost nothing. The wind cut through armor like knives, and navigational instincts kept them on course when the GPS systems failed from ion interference. At least he was useful for something. But the cold was killing him slowly. His movements became sluggish. His thoughts came slower. His body temperature kept dropping despite the thermal packs. Noticed but said nothing, just moved closer to share body heat during rest stops. Around midday, disaster struck. They were crossing a frozen river when Wu Jin broke through the ice. He plunged into water so cold it would kill a human in minutes. Wu and Miran pulled him out, but his leg was badly injured. Broken or fractured, Miran could not tell without proper scans. I can walk, Wu Jin said through chattering teeth. No, you can't, Miran said, injecting him with something for the pain. The leg won't support weight. And ran calculations in his head. They had to cover 50 kilometers per day to reach Rally Point Omega in time. With an injured squad member, they would be lucky to make 30. They would miss the deadline, miss the battle, fail the mission. We should leave him, and said. Everyone turned to stare at him. He is a tactical liability. We cannot carry him and maintain our pace. Someone can return for him after we reach the rally point. The silence was heavy. Say that again, Wu said quietly. His voice was dangerous. It is logical, and insisted. One person's survival should not compromise the mission. We leave him with supplies and... We don't leave people behind, said. His voice was flat, final, ever. But we will fail to reach. We'll reach it, said, all of us together. Wu walked to Wu Jin and hoisted him onto his back without another word. Wu Jin protested, but Wu ignored him. The big human started walking, carrying his friend like he weighed nothing. And did the math. Wu was already carrying 30 kilograms of equipment. Wu Jin added another 70. 100 total kilograms while marching through a frozen hell. It was impossible, inefficient, illogical. But Wu walked. They marched for 8 more hours. Wu never complained, never asked for a break. When they finally stopped for the night, he gently set Wu Jin down and immediately began helping set up camp. He moved like he had not just carried a full-grown man for 8 hours. You are stronger than I calculated, and admitted to Wu. Not about strength, Wu said, flexing his tired shoulders. It's about not giving up. Wu Jin would do the same for me. That night and recalculated. They had covered 35 kilometers, not enough but more than he expected. Maybe humans had reserves they could access when needed. Maybe emotion was not just weakness. Maybe it was fuel. Day 2 brought new problems. One's sensors picked up scouts, 7 of them moving in a patrol pattern. If the scouts reported human positions, they would send a kill team. The squad could not outrun warriors designed for hunting. We set an ambush, decided. They found a narrow ice canyon and prepared, and positioned himself on high ground with perfect sight lines. The humans spread out below, hiding behind rocks and ice formations. Then they waited. And waited. 3 hours passed. The temperature dropped further, and's body wanted to shut down to hibernate until warmth returned. But he forced himself to stay alert. Below him, the humans did not move, not 1 centimeter. They lay in the freezing cold, barely breathing, waiting for enemies. And understood patience in hunting, but this was different. This was human patience. The kind of patience that came from knowing death walked beside you and you had to be absolutely still or die. His species relied on speed and reflexes. Humans relied on this, the ability to become part of the landscape, to wait, to endure. Finally, the scouts appeared. They were massive, 7 feet tall, scaled skin, eyes like yellow lamps. They carried plasma rifles and wore armor that looked organic, grown rather than built. They moved with deadly grace, scanning for threats. They walked right into the kill zone. His voice came through the comm, barely a whisper. Wait for it. They were 10 meters away, 5 meters, right in the middle of the canyon, and's finger tightened on his trigger. Every instinct screamed to fire now. Wait, whispered. The lead stopped. His head swiveled, sensing something wrong. Now said. The canyon exploded with gunfire. And shots were precise. Headshots, the only way to kill quickly. 2 scouts dropped before they could react. Below, the humans opened fire from 3 sides. Crossfire, perfectly coordinated. But they were warriors. They did not panic. They returned fire immediately, their weapons cutting through the ice. 1 blast hit near Wu. He rolled away, but not fast enough, and saw the plasma burn on his shoulder, the smell of burned flesh. Wu kept fighting. A charged one's position. She shot him twice, center mass. The warrior stumbled but did not fall, had redundant organs. You had to hit the brain or spine. One was not strong enough to fight him hand to hand. She was going to die. Wu Jin, injured leg and all, threw himself between them. He took the strike, a massive clawed hand that sent him flying, but it gave one time to aim properly. Her next shot took this head off. The fight lasted 90 seconds. All 7 lay dead. The humans had won. But victory had a cost. Wu's shoulder was badly burned. Wu Jin had 3 broken ribs now to go with his broken leg. Miran had a gash on her arm from flying ice. They were hurt, bleeding, damaged. And they were smiling. Got those scaled bastards, Wu laughed, wincing as Miran treated his burn. That's for every human they killed. That's for every colony they burned. You are celebrating and could not understand. You are injured, in pain. Why do you laugh? Because we're alive, Wu Jin said, holding his ribs. And they're not. That's worth celebrating. One worked on a captured communicator, her fingers flying across the alien interface. Got it, she said. I can send false reports, make them think this patrol is still active, buy us time. You learned communications protocols, and asked. On the transport ship, she said. Figured we might fight them someday, prepared just in case. And studied these humans. They prepared for battles that might never come. They carried wounded friends without complaint. They fought with fury when threatened. They made tactically poor choices to protect each other, yet somehow they survived. They were not logical. They were not efficient, but they were effective in ways his calculations could not predict. That night, exhausted and hurt, They gathered around the heat generator again. "Why do you fight this way?" and asked. "You sacrifice efficiency for sentiment. You risk your lives for individuals. It makes no mathematical sense." Looked at him. "We're not fighting for efficiency, N. We're fighting for each other, for home, for everyone we love. Your species fights to win battles. We fight because losing means everyone we care about dies. There's a difference." "Emotion makes you weak," and said, but his voice held uncertainty now. "No," Miran said, cleaning her wound. "Emotion makes us dangerous. When you fight, you're calculating odds, looking for optimal solutions. When we fight, we're protecting our families, avenging our dead. There's no calculation that beats that kind of fury." And wanted to argue, wanted to prove them wrong with logic and numbers. But he had seen Wu carry Wu Jin for 8 hours, seen Wu Jin throw himself in front of a despite broken bones, seen them all fight like demons to protect each other. Maybe there was something he did not understand, something that could not be measured or calculated. Day 3 was the worst. A massive ion storm hit just before dawn. Electronics died. Guidance systems failed. Communications went offline. They navigated by landmarks and instinct, stumbling through blinding ice and wind. And natural sense of direction was scrambled by the ionization. For the first time in his life, he was lost. His greatest advantage gone, he was useless. "Everyone hold onto the person in front of you," ordered. "We move as a chain. Nobody gets separated." They formed a line, each person gripping the one ahead, and found himself between and one. The storm screamed around them. He could not see, could not navigate. He had to trust them to lead. It was terrifying. Hours passed, maybe 5, maybe 10. Time lost meaning in the white chaos, and felt his body shutting down from cold. His legs stopped working properly. He stumbled. Hands caught him, and one supporting his weight. "Stay with us," shouted over the wind. "We're almost there." "How do you know?" and asked. "I don't," admitted, "but giving up isn't an option." One pulled out her grandmother's book, protected in a waterproof case. She opened it, looked at the sky when the storm cleared for just a moment. "That way," she pointed. "The stars, my grandfather taught me. Before sensors, humans navigated by stars. The old ways work when new ways fail." She was right. 2 hours later, they stumbled into Rally Point Omega. 4 other human squads had already arrived, and Squad was the only mixed-species unit to make it. Several squads had not arrived at all. In the command tent, they received the briefing. The forward base was larger than expected. A full warship had crashed there. They were fortifying it, preparing for reinforcements. If those reinforcements arrived, the sector would fall. Millions would die. "We assault at dawn," Commander Ho said. He was old, missing an eye. "Intel says we're outnumbered 3-1. They have better positions, better armor, better weapons. This is a suicide mission. We're buying time for the evacuation fleet." The room was silent. "Anyone who wants to withdraw, do it now," the commander said. "No shame, no dishonor." Nobody moved and looked around. Every human face held the same expression: fear. They were afraid. He could see it in their eyes, smell it in their sweat. They knew they might die tomorrow. But not one of them left. "Get some rest," Commander Ho said. "At dawn, we show these bastards what happens when you threaten human space." Outside the tent gathered the squad. "You've trained for this," he said. "Stay together. Watch each other's backs. We go home together or we don't go home at all." They touched hands, one by one. A human ritual N had seen before but never understood. Wu looked at him. "You with us, bug boy?" And felt something strange in his chest. Fear, yes, but also something else. Something warm despite the freezing cold. These humans had carried him when he was weak, saved him when he was lost, stood beside him when death approached. "I am with you," and said. And for the first time he meant it. Dawn came cold and red across Titan 9, and stood with his squad at the edge of the ice canyon. Below them, 2 kilometers away, the crashed warship rose from the frozen ground like a dead monster. Warriors moved around it, building defenses, preparing weapons, and enhanced vision counted at least 300 enemies. The coalition force had 90 soldiers. "Final equipment check," said. His voice was calm. How could he be calm? And watched his teammates prepare. Wu loaded his plasma cannon, wincing from his burned shoulder but not slowing down. One checked her tech equipment, fingers steady despite the cold. Miran organized medical supplies with quiet efficiency. Wu Jin, still injured, strapped on extra charges. They all knew what was coming. They all knew the odds. None of them spoke about it. "Listen up," gathered them close. "We've trained for this. We've survived worse together. Stay tight, cover each other, watch your angles. And remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves. We're fighting for every human back home who's counting on us." "And for Bug Boy here," Wu said, slapping En's carapace. "He's one of us now." Something warm moved through En's chest. One of us, the words should not matter, but they did. "Move out," Commander Ho's voice came through the comm. "All squads advance. Show these reptile bastards what humanity is made of." The assault began. 3 groups of soldiers moved down the canyon walls, using ice formations for cover. Plasma fire lit up the dawn. They spotted them immediately, returning fire. Explosions shook the ground. And analytical mind processed everything at once: trajectory calculations, threat assessments, optimal firing positions. His training took over. He moved like liquid lightning, finding cover, acquiring targets, firing with perfect accuracy. One dropped, then another. His 4 legs carried him across the ice faster than any human could run. His reflexes let him dodge fire that would kill others. He was built for this, made for this. But the humans were different. They did not fight like individuals. They fought like a single organism, called out enemy positions. One jammed communications. Wu laid down, suppressing fire. Miran covered their advance. Wu Jin placed charges that collapsed ice walls onto positions. The battle was chaos, pure screaming chaos. Plasma bolts turned ice into steam. Explosions threw bodies through the air. The screams of dying soldiers mixed with the roar of weapons. Blood, human, and stained the white ground red and green. And had trained in thousands of simulations. None of them prepared him for this. Real combat was not clean, not organized. It was terror and fury and desperation all mixed together. It was watching soldiers die and knowing you might be next. It was the smell of burned flesh and the taste of fear in your mouth. And the humans fought through it all. They pushed forward. Meter by meter they advanced. When one soldier fell, another took their place. When weapons jammed, they used them as clubs. When ammunition ran low, they fixed bayonets and charged anyway. And saw Wu's position get overrun. 6 warriors charged him. His cannon was empty, magazines depleted. He should have retreated. That was the logical choice. Instead, Wu charged them. He used the empty cannon as a battering ram, smashing into the first. He broke the warrior's neck with the impact. The other 5 swarmed him, and saw claws tearing at Wu's armor, saw blood spraying. One appeared from nowhere, throwing a cluster of charges into the pile of bodies. Fire in the hole. The explosion threw everyone apart. Wu Jin, broken ribs and all, dragged Wu out of the blast zone. They tumbled behind cover, both bleeding, both hurt. And they were laughing. "Got those bastards," Wu shouted, checking his wounds. "Did you see that? I headbutted her." "You're insane," Wu Jin said, also laughing. "Completely insane." They nearly died. They should be in shock. Instead, they laughed like this was the best day of their lives. And did not understand. But he felt something stirring in him. Something that made him want to laugh too, want to charge forward screaming, want to fight not with cold calculation but with hot fury. The squad pushed deeper into the base. The defenses got stronger, more enemies, better positions. The casualties mounted. Coalition soldiers fell, never to rise again. The communication channels filled with screams and static. But the humans kept advancing. "Why don't they retreat?" and asked as they crouched behind a broken wall. "The casualties are too high. This is not sustainable." "Because if we retreat, the win," said, reloading his weapon. "And if they win, they kill everyone in this sector. Our families, our friends, everyone, so we don't retreat. We never retreat." A massive explosion rocked the battlefield. The main command bunker collapsed. Coalition forces had broken through the primary defenses. The tide was turning. But then in saw them. Two commanders, each 8 feet tall, wearing heavy battle armor. They moved toward and Miran's position. The two humans were separated from the main force, exposed and vulnerable. And had a clean line of retreat. He could fall back to the main group. Regroup, survive. That was the logical choice, the smart choice, the choice. He charged forward instead. His weapon fire made the commanders turn. They saw him coming. One raised a massive plasma rifle and dodged left, his reflexes saving him. The shot missed by centimeters. He fired back, hitting the commander's armor. The shots bounced off. Behind them, threw Miran behind cover and stepped between her and the second commander. The warrior's blade came down, blocked with his rifle. The weapon shattered. The blade kept coming. It cut deep into side. And felt something break inside him, not physically. Something deeper, something in his mind or heart or whatever made him who he was. He saw fall, saw Miran screaming, saw the commander raising his weapon to finish them both. And then did not calculate, did not think, did not analyze. He screamed. It was not a war cry. It was something primal, something that came from a place he did not know existed. He emptied his weapon into the nearest commander. When it ran dry, he grabbed a fallen human's rifle. When that ran dry, he picked up a blade and charged. The commander turned to face him, too slow, and was faster than any human. His 4 legs carried him forward in a blur. The blade in his hands felt right, natural, like an extension of his fury. He drove it through the commander's throat. The second commander charged him and pulled the blade free and dodged. Miran, tears streaming down her face, fired her weapon. Her shots hit the commander's back plates, doing little damage but distracting him. It was enough. And's blade found the gap in the armor, drove deep into the spine. Both commanders fell. And dropped beside. The human was bleeding badly. Miran was already working, her hands steady despite her tears. She applied pressure, injected coagulants, worked with desperate efficiency. "Stupid, heroic," Bug whispered, smiling through the pain. "You're learning." "Do not die," and said. His voice sounded strange to his own ears. "You cannot die, we need you, I need you." "Not planning," on it said. "Got too much to live for." Wu and Wu Jin appeared, providing cover fire. One called for a medic. The rest of the squad formed a defensive circle around their fallen leader. Commander Ho's voice cut through the chaos. "All squads, final push, break their center line." The coalition forces surged forward. The humans fought like demons, like beings possessed. They screamed war cries in languages and did not know, ancient words from Earth, words their ancestors used when facing death. And the warriors who never retreated started falling back. The species that knew no fear began to flee, because they saw what every species eventually learned. Humans do not stop. Wound them, they keep fighting. Kill their friends, they fight harder. Push them to the edge of death, and they drag you into the abyss with them. One reached the communications array. Her fingers danced across the controls, shutting down their distress signal now. The signal died. The reinforcements would not come. The sector was safe. But the cost was heavy. 23 coalition soldiers dead, 41 wounded. The ice was red with blood, the air smelled of death. Victory, but at a terrible price. Medics rushed forward. They stabilized, loaded him onto a stretcher. Miran refused to leave his side. Wu and Wu Jin limped along, holding each other up. One's face was blank with shock. And walked with them. His armor was covered in green blood and red human blood mixed together. His body ached. His mind felt strange, like something fundamental had shifted. He had charged to save, had fought not with calculation but with emotion, had felt fury and fear and something deeper, had experienced what humans called brotherhood. He understood now. Humans did not win because they were strong. They won because they refused to let each other fall alone. They won because emotion gave them strength that pure logic never could. They won because when one human fell, the others fought twice as hard to avenge them. The evacuation ships appeared over the horizon, coming to take them home. "You fought well," Wu said, his arm around and shoulder. Blood still dripped from his wounds, but he smiled. "You're really one of us now." "I nearly died," and said. "Welcome to the human experience," Wu Jin laughed weakly. "Nearly dying with your friends beats living alone any day." And looked at his squad, his friends, because that was what they were now, not just teammates, not just soldiers, friends, family. The words meant something different now. The ships landed. Medical teams rushed out. They took first, then the other wounded. The squad refused to separate, climbing into the same transport. They sat together, battered and bloody and alive. As the ship lifted off and looked back at the battlefield, the frozen ground was by combat. Bodies lay where they fell. The warship burned, sending black smoke into the red sky. They had won, but so many had lost. Miran held's hand as the medics worked. "Stay with us," she whispered. "Please stay with us." "I'm here," said weakly. "Takes more than a blade to kill a human." And felt his mandibles click together. The human equivalent would be a smile. He did not know when he started copying human behaviors, did not know when he started feeling human emotions, but somewhere between the march and the battle, between the fear and the fury, he had changed. He had questioned humanity until the bullets started flying. Now he understood what made them special, what made them dangerous, what made them unstoppable. They loved, and that love made them strong. 3 weeks later, Sentinel-7 station felt different to him. The corridors were the same, the lights were the same, the sounds were the same, but he saw everything through new eyes now. Where before he saw weakness, he now saw strength. Where he saw inefficiency, he now saw adaptability. Where he saw emotion, he now saw power. The ceremony hall was filled with soldiers and officers. Banners from 17 coalition species hung from the ceiling, and stood with his squad in the front row, stood beside him, his wound healed but leaving a scar that would never fade. The human said scars were medals you wore on your skin. Commander Ho stepped to the podium. The old human's single eye scanned the crowd. "We gather today to honor those who fought at Titan 9, his voice echoed through the hall. 23 soldiers gave their lives, many more gave their blood, but because of their sacrifice, the sector is safe. Millions of lives were saved." The hall was silent. Some awards are for following orders, some are for tactical excellence, but the highest awards are for something else, for showing courage beyond calculation, for protecting others before yourself, for embodying the ideals we all fight for. Ho called out names. Soldiers stepped forward to receive medals. Each one had a story of bravery. Each one had earned their place in this hall. "Cadet of Prime," Ho called, and stepped forward. His 4 legs carried him to the stage with the same precision as always, but his mind was different now. He was different now. "This cadet entered the academy believing his species' superiority would ensure victory," Ho said. He learned a harder truth. War does not care about superiority. War cares about determination, about sacrifice, about standing beside your brothers and sisters when death comes calling. In the battle for Titan 9, Cadet an abandoned tactical advantage to save his squad leader. He fought not with cold calculation, but with fierce loyalty. He learned what it means to be part of something greater than himself. Ho held up a medal, the Coalition Star, gold and silver mixed together, representing all species working as one. It was the highest honor for a cadet, the first to ever receive it. For valor in combat, for putting others before yourself, for embodying the Coalition ideals, I present the Coalition Star. The medal was heavy when Ho placed it around his neck, not in weight, in meaning, in responsibility, in everything it represented. The hall erupted in applause, humans and every other species standing together, and looked at his squad. They were cheering louder than anyone. Wu whistled. One wiped tears from her eyes. Miran smiled so wide it looked painful. Wu Jin pumped his fist in the air and nodded, just one simple nod, but it said everything. After the ceremony and returned to his quarters, a message waited on his terminal, from Prime, from the Council itself. He opened it with trembling hands. Cadet N, the Council has received your initial reports on human military capability. Your conclusions were concerning. You claimed humans were inferior. However, news of your medal and combat performance suggests a different story. We require your final assessment. What is the truth about human military effectiveness? And sat at his desk. His fingers moved across the keyboard, typing words he never thought he would write. Honored Council, my initial assessment was flawed. I observed humans through a lens of superiority. I measured them by our standards and found them lacking. I was wrong. Humans are not weak. They are not inferior. They are terrifying, not despite their emotions, but because of them. A fight's with logic and precision. We calculate odds, seek advantages, and withdraw when victory is impossible. Humans do not calculate. They feel. They fight with rage, with love, with desperation, with joy. When you wound one human, the others fight harder. When you kill their friends, you give them power beyond measure. They carry their dead with them into every battle, fighting not just for themselves, but for everyone who came before and everyone who comes after. I watched a human carry his injured friend for 8 hours through a frozen hell. I watched humans laugh while bleeding from fatal wounds. I watched them charge superior forces with empty weapons because retreat meant others would die. They fight with a ferocity born of love and loyalty. They refuse to accept defeat even when defeat is logical. Recommendation: never fight humans unless absolutely necessary. If forced to fight them, end it quickly, or they will never stop coming. They will drag you into the abyss with them, and they will be smiling when they do it. Final conclusion: I requested assignment with an elite coalition strike team composed primarily of humans. If the Council seeks to understand humanity, send more observers. But be warned, they may not return they may return as something else, something changed, as I have been changed. Respectfully submitted, Cadet N. He sent the message and closed the terminal. A knock on his door, entered without waiting for permission. The human had learned that it never locked doors anymore. "You okay?" asked. "I just told the Council that humans are more dangerous than my species. And I do not regret it," and said, "I was arrogant. I believed superiority was measured in speed and strength. I was wrong." Sat down. "You weren't completely wrong. Your species is faster, stronger in many ways, better reflexes, longer, those are facts." "Then why do you win?" and asked. Against anyone who threatens you. How do humans keep winning?" Smiled. "Because when you fight alone, you only have your strength. When we fight, we carry each other's strength. I'm not just fighting with my abilities. I'm fighting with Wu's courage, one's intelligence, Miran's compassion, Wu Jin's determination. I carry all of them with me. And I carry every human who came before me. Every ancestor who survived war, famine, plague, disaster. Every person who refused to give up. That's a weapon you can't calculate." And was silent for a long moment. "I question your species," he said finally. "I called you primitive, inefficient, weak." We are all those things sometimes, agreed. We make mistakes. We let emotions cloud our judgment. We cry and laugh and feel too much. But you survive. Yeah, we survive. Because we're stubborn. Because we refuse to quit. Because losing means everyone we love dies and we won't accept that. I want to stay with your squad, and said. The High Command offered me a position. I declined. I requested to remain here if you will have me. Stood and extended his hand, a human gesture, and reached out with his primary manipulator and grasped it. You were one of us the moment you charged that commander, said. Welcome home, brother. That evening the squad gathered at their favorite spot, an observation deck on the station's outer ring with a view of Earth hanging in the black. They brought drinks. Humans loved their rituals, and sharing drinks was apparently sacred. Tu Wu raised his glass, for not dying like an idiot. Tu Wu countered, for headbutting like an idiot. They laughed. They told stories of the battle. Some were funny, some were sad, some were both, and listened to them talk about the soldiers who did not come back, how they remembered them, how they honored them by living well. Try this, Miran handed in a cup. It's coffee, human invention. And smelled it. His sensory organs recoiled. It smelled burnt and bitter. He drank it anyway. It tasted terrible, absolutely horrible. This is disgusting, he said. Yeah, Wu agreed. Tastes like burnt mud, but it keeps you awake and it's warm, you get used to it. Why would anyone drink something that tastes bad? Because it reminds us we're alive, Wu Jin said. Sweet things are nice, but bitter things make you appreciate the sweet. Besides, soldiers have been drinking terrible coffee for thousands of years. It's tradition. And drank more. It was still disgusting, but he understood now. It was not about the taste. It was about sharing something with friends, about tradition, about being part of something bigger. I have a question, and said. When the charged our position when was wounded, I calculated the odds. The logical choice was to retreat, to save myself, but I charged forward instead. I did not think, I just acted. Why? Because you're human now, one said simply. I am. No, she shook her head. Species is biology, but humanity is a choice. It's choosing to stand beside others when you could run, choosing to fight for something beyond yourself, choosing love over logic. You made that choice. That makes you human in all the ways that matter. Besides, Wu added, you're stuck with us now, bug boy, we adopted you, no returns. They laughed, and found himself clicking his mandibles in the pattern he now knew was laughter. When had he learned that? When had he started copying human expressions? It did not matter. He was part of this strange, wonderful, terrifying family now. New orders came through, said. We're assigned to Strike Force Omega, Elite Coalition Rapid Response. We deploy in 2 weeks. Where, Miran asked. Classified, but probably somewhere dangerous. Isn't everywhere dangerous these days, Wu Jin said. Yeah, admitted, but we face it together. They raised their glasses, and raised his terrible coffee. Together, they said in unison. And looked at each of them. Wu, who carried others without complaint. One who navigated by stars when technology failed. Miran, who saved lives with steady hands. Wu Jin, who fought through pain. Who led with quiet strength. His family, his squad, his reason for fighting. Later that night, alone in his quarters, and made one final entry in his personal log. The humans have a saying, no one fights alone. I understand now. I came to this academy believing we're superior. I was correct about our speed, our reflexes, our analytical abilities, but I was wrong about what matters. Humans do not fight to prove superiority. They fight for each other. That makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. I questioned humanity until the bullets started flying. I called them weak, primitive, illogical. I was blind. I measured them by the wrong standards. Humanity's strength is not in their bodies, it is in their hearts, in their refusal to abandon each other, in their ability to love fiercely and fight furiously and laugh in the face of death. Now I stand with them, not as a observing humans, but as a soldier among soldiers, as a friend among friends, perhaps even as family. If the bullets fly again, I know what I will do. I will stand with them. I will fight beside them. I will carry them if they fall as they carried me, because that is what humans taught me. That is what it means to be part of something greater than yourself. I questioned humanity. Now I understand. Now I believe. Now I am one of them, and I would not have it any other way. He saved the log and closed his terminal. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles, new dangers, but he would not face them alone. None of them would. Because they were human, all of them, in all the ways that mattered. And looked out his window at the stars. Somewhere out there the still threatened. Other enemies waited. The galaxy was dangerous and war was coming. But so was humanity, and that made all the difference. He settled into his bunk and closed his eyes. For the first time since leaving Prime, and slept without calculating odds of survival, without running threat assessments, without preparing for every possible disaster. He slept like a human, trusting his family to watch over him, knowing that if danger came, they would face it together. And in the morning they would be ready, because that was what soldiers did. That was what humans did. That was what and did now, too.